We are ready to fight ISIS wherever they may be. It surprises me that all these coalition members are struggling to provide Peshmergas with the adequate army, especially when they know how dangerous ISIS is, not only to Kurdistan or Iraq, but to the region and, of course, to the world.
We're driving up to the Syrian border to meet Chancellor Masrour Barzani. He's the son of the president, Masoud Barzani. He's the Chancellor of Kurdistan Security Council, and we're going to ask him about the progress of the war against Islamic State. As Kurdistan Security Chief, Masrour Barzani is one of the most important figures in the international coalition to defeat Islamic State. There's a lot of speculation about the forthcoming offensive against the Islamic State in Mosul. What will be the role of the Peshmerga in that offensive?
Peshmergas have done their job by clearing some of the areas in the north, west, and east of Mosul. By liberating some of these areas, of course, I mean, that definitely is going to put ISIS in a much more difficult position to defend the city. But in terms of speculating when the offensive will take place, I think is wrong by giving the enemy a date of when this assault will happen or the nature of the attack.
Do you think it was a mistake of the Pentagon to brief that the assault would come this spring?
I don't know what the intention of talking about, the specific dates was in their mind, but militarily, I think it's not very wise to warn the enemy and tell them to be prepared for a certain period of time when the attack will happen.
The Pentagon assessed that there were up to 2,000 Islamic State fighters within Mosul. Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
I think there are more, but it's not just the people that have come from outside, from ISIS, but there are also people that have sympathized and over this period of time that have been able to join or, the opportunity that ISIS had to recruit some local forces, it exceeds that number.
What are your thoughts on the American administration's strategy in defeating ISIS?
Well, to be quite frank, I think not just the Americans, but the entire coalition forces. It's a little difficult to think that all of these countries have not been able to defeat ISIS militarily so far. Defeating ISIS militarily it shouldn't be too difficult if everybody is really committed to do their job. Now, defeating ISIS on other fronts, let's say ideological war against ISIS, might take years. Also, more specifically, militarily to defeat ISIS, I think they need a more effective ground force. Airstrikes have been effective, but they can never defeat the enemy.
So, by that ground force, do you mean a better armed and equipped Kurdish or Iraqi army force, or actually American ground troops?
I don't think it's about calling for the Americans to come in. The question is, how quickly they want to defeat ISIS.
Is the level of support the Peshmerga being given adequate to the task they face?
Any modern army would be equipped with modern, let's say, equipments and more adequate equipments. To expect Peshmergas to fight like a modern army, then they have to be equipped like a modern army.
As a consequence of the war against the Islamic State, the Peshmerga have pushed into, or have moved into some of the disputed areas with Baghdad. Yeah. Do you see these areas as becoming part of a future Kurdistan?
This is a wrong perception, because if the Kurds had not liberated these areas would have been under the control of ISIS. And I would be surprised if people now argue to say whether or not these areas would be best to be controlled by the Peshmergas or by ISIS. If people think that ISIS control of these areas would be better, then I have nothing else to say to them.
These are places that the local Sunni Arab population, or elements among the local Sunni Arab population, have shown a degree of support for the Islamic State. Mm-hmm. If the Peshmerga or if the Kurdish administration stays there, do you anticipate a future insurgency?
The Peshmergas have not gone anywhere where we don't believe is part of Kurdistan. And that's why when I talked about political and geographical limitations, that's exactly what I meant by it. That we don't intend to go to the areas where we don't believe it's Kurdish territories.
Without going too much into technical or tactical detail, do you anticipate it being a difficult battle?
I do anticipate it to be a very difficult battle, yes.